Ready? Yes. Hi. Hi, welcome.
Hi.
You made it. You found it. We're in the grotto, the luxury grotto. Hi, my name is Jess. You can call me Jess in person. I go by Lady Jess. That's my artist name. I'm very happy to be here with these lovely guests for this intimate discussion. Songs from the Road. We're basically just going to talk about touring, practical things about touring, crazy things about touring. And then we will conclude just before we go into the question and answer with some extremely important relevant commentary from another colleague who is experiencing some trauma in their traveling story. Okay, but before we start, I'd just like to introduce everyone. Let's start with you, Drew. And Drew, go ahead. You have your mic? Or am I passing? I'm passing.
You might be passing. I think there's a mic over here, too. All right. And then was I supposed to say just mine? And then, I know I didn't pull up the doc. So, yes, tell me which.
So, tell me a little bit about yourself. What are your pronouns? Where do you currently live? And what are some highlights of your touring experience?
Oh, okay, yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Andrew Griffin. On a person-to-person level, you can call me Drew. I live in New York and in Brooklyn, to be particular. And one of my, I'm a violist, a composer, recently started doubling on violin. And my touring experience has been, I've done like rock tours, which is kind of interesting. I found a whole world open up through that. And then I did an extensive tour stint with Les Miserables, the Broadway show. And yeah, I think that's, and every other tour has just been like smaller things, but those are the very impactful ones for my life, so we'll tell you that.
Okay, cool. My name is Kelsey Lu. My pronouns are she, they. My friends call me Lu, so if you see me, call me Lu. And my home base is New York in Brooklyn. I live in Red Hook. And I've been touring for a long time as a solo artist, but then in bands before that. I started in a classical background, and then when I was studying cello at North Carolina School of the Arts, I met an underground hip-hop band, and that was local. And then that kind of, from there, then I started on my sort of own track musically. And yeah, so I've had a lot of great touring experiences, not great touring experiences, but overall really grateful to have had the experience of touring all over the world. And we can get more into that later.
Yes, we can. Lisa.
Hi, everyone. My name's Lisa E. Harris. That is my stage name, and my friends and community call me Lee. I am an interdisciplinary artist, a composer, performer, and a researcher. And I have a classical background as well, in classical voice and opera performance. I have some touring experience in varied groups too, with, we'll talk about that more too, but with improvisational ensembles from, one called The Bridge, that is usually between the AACM in Chicago and France, and also with jazz musician, a jazz pianist, Jason Moran. I toured with him for 10 years, and as a solo artist. So, and as a visual artist. So that's some intersection there that we could talk about. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you guys for being here. And I want to encourage everyone, too, if you haven't already, to please download the Sphinx app, because it is through that app that you can send questions that we'll cover, hopefully, today. You'll get all the information you need for any other sessions, for performances, for tonight's performances, for the competition. Everything is there in the Sphinx app. And as far as my touring experience goes, it is also varied, and that's a big part of why I asked these artists to join me today. I've toured with orchestras, I've toured in a chamber group, I've toured with a Christian rock band, and yeah, I know, I'm telling you, lives, I've lived them. Yeah, and a few years ago, I toured with some A-level mainstream artists, and I'll get into that a little later as well. So I'd like to start with Lu.
You would.
I
That's
would.
sisterly. That's sisterly.
Oh, I
love.
forgot to mention, Lu is my sister.
Yeah.
So super excited about this today. Did you always want to tour?
Yeah, I did. I had no idea what it was going to be like going into it. Like, I think there's this preconceived idea of what touring is like. People are like, "Oh my God, that's so exciting, amazing!" You're like traveling, and getting to perform in front of people. And all of that is a part of it, but it's also really exhausting, all of the travel. You know,
It's a grind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially if you aren't equipped. I mean, at the beginning, for a long time, I didn't have a tour manager. I didn't have anybody there delegating for me. Mm-hmm. And so I would come across a lot of backlash, often from sound engineers, people who would like see me and they would just be like, "Oh, here's this black girl with the cello and some pedals. She probably doesn't know what she's doing and doesn't know how to use this equipment. And so I'm going to dominate this space and tell you what you're doing wrong." And so traversing a lot of those microaggressions and macro racism, sexist kind of agendas, is something that you don't really get prepared for until it happens. And the first band that I ever toured with was Nappy Roots, and I was the only lady, with a lot of older
Dudes.
Yeah. And so that had also been touring on the road for a long time. Mm-hmm. And so they're really used to it. I was not used to it. And so afterwards, things that would happen afterwards, and then I would just be like along for the ride because I didn't have a ride to myself to the hotel. So it was a lot of learning, mm-hmm. As I was going along. And I could ramble on about that for a long time, but
yeah. Let's
reel it in.
Yeah, let's reel it in and circle back a little later. Drew, how about you? Did you always want to tour?
I did want to tour. I had a lot of dreams. It's like, as a young person. But yeah, I really, one of my things that I wanted to do was I always wanted to start a chamber group. And I forgot to mention, I did. That was one of the big things that I did when I was touring. My first experience was with Sphinx Virtuosi. And so there was some things, at the time, it was a little bit earlier in the development, and there's some things that I really liked in terms of how communication happened, and things that I was like, well, if I had my own group, I would do it this way. And so I just kind of picked and chose which things worked. And then when I had my group that actually formed from Sphinx Virtuosi, which, it was called Alkali. It was like a crash course in like, what does it look like to really be a touring band? Because everyone sees, like Ariana Grande and like Beyonce and everyone like, oh, you're out and you're gonna be touring and like it's so glam, like what's that gonna be? And then, you know, when you're actually like, I mean, at the beginning I was putting together 13 people, which doesn't seem that, maybe it doesn't seem that big, but it was quite big because everyone was coming from all over the country. And then you gotta be like, all right, I gotta get hotels, I gotta get, you know, everyone has to have a certain budget, you know, everyone has to have all the music, because I was also writing all of the music and gathering it. So, you know, I'm communicating with the venues. It was just like, wow, that is a crash course in learning what, you know, this dream really was. So, you know, I've gotten to see it from both angles. But yeah, I really, it at the same time, it was like such a dream. It was like one of the best experiences I've had. I learned so much from it. But yeah, it was good. Yeah.
And Lisa, how about you?
Did I always want to tour?
Yes.
I always wanted to tour. I thought it was a dream too, and until I got there and I woke up.
You arrived to the road.
I was like, I thought it was. I had a dream of like my, you know, oh, I want to do 5 big concerts a year and I want to do 3 tours a year. They're like 2 weeks each or something that I still think ideally that sounds reasonable as far as touring. But even just the amount of touring that I've done, I'm kind of like, I mean, does it have to be that long? You know, can it be a week at a time? Like Lou,
Absolutely.
I was in a band where I was the only lady, which is an experience. And of course, we grew like a family ship at some point. But also there comes a lot of like these micro and macro aggressions thwarted towards you about ability to understand. Actually, when we toured, sometimes we had a woman sound engineer, which was actually really nice.
That's a true blessing when you come upon that.
Exactly.
Seriously.
So that was rare and exciting. And I also am unmanaged, or I manage myself, which changed the whole dynamic in my touring experience so far as to being a band leader and really focusing on my solo career. Really only extending maybe duo or trio, because I do not manage people. I don't.
That's real.
Yeah.
And it's important to know that about yourself.
I know that.
When you're starting a tour, I would say. Mm-hmm. And I know for me, I also always wanted to tour. I just liked traveling. When we were little, our parents would, if people came from out of town, they would take us to the airport, pre-TSA, aging ourselves, to just literally watch the planes take off. And I was just like, I got to do it. I have to be there. It was like a thirst almost. And I feel like everyone manifests it unless they find themselves accidentally in a touring situation. And then it's like, oh man, do I like it? I don't know. And I feel like that's a question that I never stop asking myself in traveling. Even at the best times, you just like constantly like, do I want to be in my bed? Do I want to be at home? Do I want to have a routine? But again, these are things for later as well. So let's start with Lou. What are some practical and also some unusual items that you cannot travel without? Saying this because her room is 2 doors down from mine. So, yeah.
What's this panel rated?
Yeah.
Some things.
Yes.
Some things I can't travel without. I can't travel without my journal. I can't travel without my tools for my meditation, just like incense. Smell is really important, like anything sensory related that can bring me back to being home or that keeps me really grounded. That has proven to just be imperative with traveling and touring. No matter where I am, I can like make someplace my home. I cannot travel without fabric. I'm a big like lighting. I'm very light sensitive. So if the lighting in the room or the green room or something's really off, I just have fabric and I can just throw it over.
And she does.
something to just bring warmth or my space into, cleanse the energy, sort of like refresh it. And so those are things that are really, really imperative for me. I would like to say a Bluetooth speaker, but I always end up forgetting it. But it's nice to be able to have some sound outside of electronics that we carry around. But yeah.
That's so funny.
Drew, what about you?
That just reminded me. I recently watched Best in Show, and one of the things that's so funny is one of the couples that has their dog. Like the guy like unpacked his suitcase and he was like, "Which tapestry do you want me to hang over the bed?" And the husband's like, "What are you doing? How many tapestries did you bring?" And just, "Well, I just something. It's off the ambiance." So I'm dying. Like hearing you say that,
that's comedy in a movie, but it's funny to us because we're all like
people
that.
Who are doing it.
I have one cloth that always travels with me that I drape over my pillow. Like it's a thing. It feels, it's nesting, the road is your home. And I will tell you that along with it just being about your feeling and your energy and your emotional state of being, it's practical. Because when you get in, especially if it's like a travel day, God forbid a travel rehearsal day or a travel performance day, and they have given you 2 hours to get off a plane, get your bags, go to the hotel, check in, go to work, then it really pays to take 5 minutes to sometimes it's something as simple as let me just set out my toiletries on a washcloth in the bathroom. Let me take the brushes out of the bag and just lay them out, wash my face, and then it's like I've had a cup of coffee, or it feels like I've had a 15-minute nap, and it's little things like that are part of your routine that you come to know the way you would know getting up to make a cup of coffee or to start a kettle of water. Like they just become home. So yeah, what about you, Lisa? The mic has traveled too. The mic is on the road.
It is. It's flying. Also, fabric, totally. I'll keep just 2 yards different, maybe 1 or 2 for the same reasons that y'all are mentioning. Like I cover my bed. Yeah. I don't know until I'm like, ooh, let me make sure they don't have bed bugs or if I'm cold or if I don't have a towel, it's just like my piece of fabric. Yeah. Any medications, my prescription, allergy things. I have I don't even have asthma, but I have an emergency inhaler because I don't want to be, especially through COVID, I do not want to be somewhere where I can't breathe. I'm a singer, so I have to take Mucinex. I have to take
y'all have things.
We have things, and they're all health-related things because travel is disgusting. Public, it's gross. It's dirty. And it's drying. I try to travel with which I forget all the time, just so we're knowing. Like here, I forgot it. I try to travel with a little room, a small mister, just to keep some humidity in the room because I can wake up and be completely dry. I have to have eye drops. I have to, if I don't have any of that stuff, I always have oil of oregano, and that's for the public. Oil of oregano. If you can't find a apothecary in Istanbul, which you can, of course, but oil of oregano, just having a practice with certain herbs, and those travel really well. That just keeps you, it keeps me stable to be able to get home. And then I try to bring a Bluetooth speaker too. I always forget. I definitely always try to bring my own water bottle. And sometimes forget, and then I feel really out there, like a motherless child. Yeah. I feel really out there. No,
that's really true. That's a crucial thing. If you're staying somewhere, I was just somewhere for 2 weeks, and I made it a point to find a store where I could get a very large steel bottle that was still lightweight, so it's at least a liter, and I actually hydrate better on the road sometimes than I do at home because it's just right there. And then when I'm traveling, if I have a carry-on, I stuff that water bottle with like toiletries wrapped in plastic. Like I use it as a travel container. And so I save space in my luggage and I'm just always hydrated. Yeah.
Also on the water tip, when I'm touring, I like to bring these charcoal sticks to stick into the water, into my container, because you never know what water is going to be like wherever you go, and if you just need to like fill up. So it takes like toxins and stuff out of the water.
Just when I think I have something so clutch, she levels up. Because I was going to say, find the hotel gym. They always have a they always have a filtered water machine, dispenser. But the charcoal sticks, is amazing. And I was talking to Cheyenne, who I'm not sure if she's here, but she was crucial in helping, like when I tell you crucial, in helping us from the road plan for this panel. I was gonna give her kind of a document or a list of things with links of things that we're talking about today, to give you something later post-panel. And I'm not sure if they'll email people or upload it to the app. I'm not sure how it all works, but I will work on doing that because I want the link to the charcoal sticks too. Okay, so, and this one we'll do kind of quickly. Whoever would like to start is fine. Please share one of your wildest tour stories. Drew, let's start with you. Drew is not my brother, but he's like my brother. He's my brother.
Man.
Yeah.
Well, I have I also forgot to say what my thing was, my item.
Please do.
I forgot. Airborne gummies. Always bring those. They're preventative.
Yeah, that's great as a gummy.
Yeah. So, and they taste good. I gotta tell you, you can take up to 9 a day if you're feeling a little something. Come on, pop them. They're so good.
It's crucial because when she
so crucial.
says flying is gross or traveling is gross, it's not just about the facilities. It's like the act of traveling is disgusting.
Yes.
And your immune system really does get weakened when you're moving around so much, when you're jumping from climate to climate, like going from LA to New York. Like it's crucial to maintain your health.
Oh yeah.
Even more so than you would at home. Yeah. You have tea?
Yeah, tea. I always bring my own tea. Yeah, I always bring my own tea. Herbal things that help with immune systems and help me sleep if I'm like going somewhere and the time difference is crazy and I'm like can't sleep at night. Like valerian root is amazing for sleeping and helping regulate your time. And mugwort is also amazing for hormones and for digestion and regulating periods and
which can be even more volatile on the road. Yeah.
Okay. Well, there's so with the wildest tour story. All right.
But like
I'll give you one. Yes, I'll give you one. So, because there's a follow-up that has to do with the same group, and this was the story I'm sure that you guys all wanted to know. So I'll give you a little tidbit of this group. So I used to work with a group called Skillet. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but they were popular in the year 2000. So they were, they needed a violinist. Someone thought, one of the cellists I went to school with, he called me up, he's like, a violinist quit, we're looking for a new person. For some reason, he thought that I would be a great match. So I was like, sounds good. They do like heavy pop rock, like heavy metal pop rock, but it's like about Jesus. So, it's
called Skillet.
Called Skillet. And their fans are called Panheads. So hold on to this. So I'm going onto the tour, and it's, it's my first trial, and they have these lifts on the side of the stage that are supposed to be the violinist and the cellist, they're these rock band, this rock kind of aesthetic, and they're dyed hair, tats, we're jacked out of our minds, we string like this, and they're doing all that. And so I'm on the side of the stage getting ready to get into this lift, with my viola, or no, it's my violin, because they didn't do a viola, so I had my violin. And they're like, all right, so Drew, the lead singer's name is John, and he's completely chaotic, but come back to that. So he goes, Drew, get into the lift and just lean against this pole. So I was kind of okay, and the pole is just a C-shape thing, and with like a single pillar that like sticks in the ground. And so I'm looking at this lift. He's like, all right, so how high in the air are you comfortable going? And I was like, how high are we talking about? He goes, well, it kind of goes like 30 feet, but you'll be safe. And so I'm just like, you gonna try it out first? Let's try that out first. And so suddenly the lift starts going. There's not like a seat belt. There's nothing in it. And I'm trying to lean against the thing. I also am terrified of heights. So like I'm leaning in the thing. It's going higher and higher. And I'm like, all right, like, if I lean against it, it's going to be good. And of course, the pole, this little pillar with the C-shaped little thing, it's just going. And so, it's my first, like, it's new for me, so I'm going up in the air, and I'm like, can't hold on to this, we're good. And then comes back down. And they're like, Drew, is that okay? And I was like, yeah, it's good. I can make that happen.
New to tour. New to touring.
So we get to the new to touring. I didn't know that I should say, hey, not good for Drew. And they were like, we get to the show. I'm in this like party city, I should say. I wish that I would have sent a picture ahead of time. But in this like party city mask because they're like opening for Korn. So it's like a whole.
Oh my God. It just keeps getting better.
That's why I'm saying there's a circle.
Say that in
it
the
keeps
planning
going.
Meeting. He did say.
We'll
that
do a
there
whole
were
thing.
Layers to this.
But long story short, I'm in this party city mask, this like wool cape. We're outdoors. It's like Iowa, because that's where their fans are now in 2017 or 16 in like the middle of nowhere. But they're doing this huge stadium, and like the thing goes up, and all of a sudden, fire and sparks, and I'm playing the violin, leaning against just trying to like, just like doing the thing, and. A spark just like hits like right over my violin arm, and I was like, you see the gif with the dog sitting in a fire with the little hat? This is fine. But you can't say anything because there's like 20,000 people. So I'm just like, yeah, I'm a rock star. Yeah, my hand is burned. You don't know that. And we're going, and guess what? We're going back down. We are going back down, and it is good. And that was my intro
There's
to
a metaphor
Skillet.
In there.
There's
Thank you so
a
much.
metaphor, but
I think everybody's going to research Skillet. That won't be on the Sphinx app, unfortunately.
that won't be on the app.
A link to Skillet.
But I'll find
Drew.
a picture and I'll see if they'll post it.
Yeah. All right, Lisa, you got one? You got a quick one? I know that deserves some applause. That was beautifully done.
Just the bravery.
In case you couldn't tell, Drew also works in theater. Yeah.
Yeah,
right there with you.
I would have passed out.
Yeah.
I have one that's not as hilarious, but also terrifying. But I was on a solo tour in Europe and Scandinavia, and I went to Helsinki, and it was really, really it wasn't random, but it was an offshoot to go there and then come back to where I was at, back to Berlin. But I went to Helsinki for this performance. They were having a conference on, they had a big Helsinki day, the day of anti-racism in Finland. And they invited me to come and perform. I was so excited to show some new work, and I did this piece called Black Solar Cells, and I was so into it, thought it was really cool. And so I'm there, everything's great. Finish, and I have 2 days to just hang out, which I was super excited about because also this was at the beginning of the first Trump administration. So I was happy just to be really far away. And so I had a day to go explore. I went to explore the national park. And, we were talking a little bit backstage about freedom and liberation. I just felt so free, and the snow was so fresh and crisp, and I had no allergies, and I was like, this is amazing. I took a trip to the national park and hiked and alone, and was really not smart about that. I thought about that later, how anything could happen to me, but whatever.
That's exactly what I would have done.
I thought about that way later, because this story it's almost done, but it has like 2 points. I went to the hike, went out to this national forest thing, and it was all these trees, and it was so beautiful, and I was taking pictures, of course, and then I saw like this big open field of snow, and I was like, that is gorgeous. I just want to go and stand in the middle of it.
Yep.
I just want to go wait right in the middle of it, because the visual for me and the creator, this is our moment.
Being present.
Right. I
Right.
want to sing to all the trees around me and see if I can hear an echo. I just want to have this natural moment.
Right.
And I walk like almost a
Snow
mile.
White.
I'm Snow White. I want to be Snow White.
She's Snow White.
It was so quiet. I'm like, ooh, ooh, nothing. And I see, and I'm like, wow, this snow, why is this big field here? What do they do here? And then I'm like, why is there a big field of snow in the middle? After I'm singing, y'all, like, ooh, 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 like really trying to make an echo come back, like really forcing an echolocation that wasn't happening. And then I saw like one little like piece of grass coming out of the snow, like one little life being. And I was like, that's interesting. And I was like, is this water? And I was like, oh no. And I was deep, like I was in the middle, because I was like, I gotta get to the middle of that big field. It's just gonna be a moment for me and the birds. And I'm out there, like really making sounds, thinking I would hear something. I was like, oh my God, how am I gonna? Oh no. I was like, this is it. This is how it ends. This is how it ends.
This is it. Yeah. No.
And I rushed back.
Yeah.
I mean, I was so scared, y'all. I was so scared. I was like, do I crawl? What do I do? What do I do? And I was just praying. And I finally, oh my God, I got back, scolded myself the whole, waited for the bus, and was like, you cannot do stuff like this. You just can't ever do this. Ever. And I was so happy that I lived. And then I took the bus back to town. I mean, it was like far, y'all. It was like remote. Only the bus driver would be like, we think we saw somebody go out there.
Oh, wow.
Only. And I'm like, solitude's amazing. Everybody deserves this. And then I go back to the city, so happy, a little bit, I don't know, delusional, I guess. So I'm just like, oh, that was crazy. End of life. And I'm walking down the street, y'all, singing now because I survived. Singing to myself in Helsinki, still more Snow White. I'm in Helsinki, I survived. Singing so giddy, crying, thanking God. And a police car passed by after I survived. And then U-turned and pulled up, and I was like, are they coming after me? And they pulled up on the sidewalk. And I was like, I'm not going to stop walking. I don't know, it was in like a real performance art mode or something. I wanted to just walk directly towards the car. It was coming directly towards my body. I was like, this is weird. This never happened to me before. And it stopped right here. Like I had to eventually move to the driver's side and was like, were you guys going to run me over? And they're like, we're looking for somebody with your description.
There it is.
Where's your passport? And I was like, I don't travel with my passport. Would that be smart? Do you travel with your passport? I was hiking. And they were like, well, we need to see something. I was like, well, what does a person look like? Maybe I saw them. Mm-hmm. And they were like, no, we just need I said, I have a driver's license, but it's from Texas. And they're like, I said, but tell me what the person looked like. I can help you. And they were like, we can't tell you that information. And I just kept asking. I was like, were they black? I mean, were they black?
Yeah, like confide. Like let's talk about it. Like
were they black?
Were they black? I've done it too. It really worked. It's very effective.
And the female officer, the female officer, she started laughing because she thought it was kind of ridiculous. She was like, I can't tell you that, but
yes.
And the male officer was like, don't ask any questions. We ask the questions. But it was such a crazy whirlwind in this solo experience of liberation. And I was there for the day of anti-racism. They were like, why are you here? I was like, I'm a guest artist for the Helsinki Day of Anti-Racism. I just went to the park because it's not racist. And that was the wildest thing. And I thought, dang. I was almost free.
We're so close. And that's, well, and I will say, because we got the 5 minute, I will say very quickly, just to add on to yours, because I want to get Joy's message in there. Traveling like that, like these stories, the surreal nature of it never ends. And it gets more intense the more present you are with yourself, just as a human, the more you start to really see how weird everything is. And I actually find that extremely stimulating. Totally. And it keeps everything interesting at a time when your body is really like over it, over the traveling, over being tired, over the dryness, like all of it. The game of not knowing, like, am I safe here? Right. You know, I'm an artist. I'm being paid to be here, featured sometimes, but I don't see anybody else. I don't know this landscape at all. And so I think being able to appreciate what is surreal can help you stay kind of balanced about what's just bullshit. And really quickly, can you do it in 1 minute?
Well, with Canada in the background, okay. So one time I was on tour with a band, and I was touring solo by myself. I was opening for them. I didn't have anybody on the road representing me. I was representing myself, and we were coming up to Canada. And this was in like 2015, maybe 14, 15, around the 16. Sometime around there. So, you know, weed laws aren't what they are now. We've progressed in legalization of marijuana. But at that time, it was not. Anyways, so at the time, I was smoking weed. And we were, like, coming closer and closer to the border. And I was, like, checking everything, making sure I didn't have any weed on me. I did, though, in fact, put a quarter up my pussy, and to hide it, because I really liked the strain that I had found in Seattle. I was like, I'm not letting this go. So, I don't know, we come up to the border. All of a sudden, we're there, and, like, nobody else smoked except for the lighting person, so we were the only two, and then we were like, you good, you good? Yeah, I'm good. I got to make sure everything's good. And so then we get there, and the border officer comes down. They're like, you need to pull over, you know, the tour van. So we all get out. They're, like, searching everything. She pulls out this backpack. She's like, who's this? Whose is this? And I'm like, no. I was like, mine. She was like, do you know about the contents of the bag? I was like, I know about the contents that I put in that bag. As far as the contents that I don't know about those contents. And she was like, boom. No, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. And then she pulled out, like, the tiniest roach. Like, it was a roach. Like, there wasn't even any more weed in there. It was, like, the end of a joint.
It was paper.
It was paper. Yeah. It was paper. So then they booked me. She arrested me, put me in the back. They're, like, patting me down. And I'm like, I'm about, like, it was like that. They even, like, handcuffed me for a roach, for nothing. Yeah. Put me in the back in a cell, in a room. And then they were, like, patting me down. And I'm like, are you good? And I heard something was like, shh. And I was like, and I was going to ask, are you going to strip search me? But I was like, as soon as I ask, then they will. Yeah. So I didn't. I was quiet. I was in there for hours. They let me out, talked to somebody on the phone that was like, there are detectives coming. They're going to search everything. If you tell us now, then, you know, otherwise you're going to go into holding until your trial's there. You're never going to be allowed into Canada anymore. Mind you, I was on the way to perform. So the concert was that night. Eventually, they let me go because they didn't find anything else. So they let me go. Whatever. The lady who arrested me was like, you know, we have better stuff here anyway, so you just might as well. You should have just waited. I was like,
which, you know, I see, like, the big takeaway from that, just to round it out and set it up for Joy, is that you can't know who the agents are going to be. you can't, it is impossible for a human being in a position of power to just be neutral about everything. They have opinions, they have feelings, they have bad days, they have good days. And as people of color, it doesn't matter if your bandmate may be carrying. You're gonna have a totally different experience. I was in Dubai when a bandmate was caught with like this. I think it was like a crumb in his sock. And they held him overnight. And when he was released and came back to the band, he could not speak about what he'd been through. And it's just very, very, very real. So be careful. If someone, and in that situation, our tour manager had said to everybody, knowing the people he was working with, when I tell you you can't have it, I don't mean like the way you can't have it. I mean, you really cannot have it. And that's, as someone who was new to that level of touring, I took that as a cue. Like, okay, so there are things you just can't do, and you gotta be good with that. And if you're not good with that, then it calls for a bigger discussion. And before we go into question and answers, we just have one more message from our colleague, Joy Guidry. I'm not sure if any of you are connected to her, but she's very important to us, and she's a part of the Sphinx community. So, Lisa, I'll let you give the intro.
Thank you. So Joy Guidry, bassoonist, also a Sphinx panelist from last year, if y'all were here. We were talking last night about today's panel, and Joy is currently preparing for her tour, her upcoming European tour. Joy is a trans woman, a black trans woman, who yesterday was notified that her passport that was reaffirming her gender has been denied under the order suspension of Marco Rubio. And this changes her life and many lives of many trans and non-binary people, and many people in our community, in our global community, all of us actually. It can't change one person, not change the rest of us. So we have this in solidarity in wanting to talk about the pros and cons. You know, we have a range of pros and cons of tour life. This is a very immediate con of what's happening to all of our liberation and mobility. So we have a message from Joy here that we'd like to share with you.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well in Detroit. Me and Lee were talking yesterday about the positives and negatives of touring, which is the topic of y'all's panel discussion today, and something that we both really wanted to bring up that most likely will not get brought up a ton in the world, or maybe even in this space, is how trans people are absolutely being under attack right now. And we've been under attack for quite a long time, but it has really amped up just in the last 4 days of this man being president. And yesterday, if you did not know, any passport that needs to have a name or sex change on it for gender affirmation or for a trans person in general is being blocked. Like, they are not being allowed to go through. I called yesterday to make sure that my appointment was okay after I saw the order be made, and the woman told me that my appointment was canceled. And as someone who just spent so much time legally getting my name and sex changed, to have to face this right before my agency is buying my tickets for my European tour that's in March. And there's so many positives and negatives to touring, but now it's a little scary because I don't even know if I'll get to keep complaining about the shitty parts of touring, or keep enjoying the Ethiopian food in each country I go to, And it's not just me, it's impacting so many other trans people, specifically black trans women. And I just ask all of you today, after you leave this panel, you go see who the grassroots organizations are in your city, in your state, and support trans people all across this country, across the world, and specifically support black trans women. We have always been under attack. We are even more under attack. We are all just awaiting to see what he does next and how it's going to get worse. This definitely feels like a situation where it will get worse before it gets better, if it does get better. Yeah, so go fight so you can hear me talk my shit about touring in the future. I'm going to stop this so I don't cry, but I wish all of you love, and please be well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lee.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joy, if you're watching. And now I guess we'll get into some question and answers.
Thank you. It's on. There we go. Thank you for putting some questions inside of the chat. We have one for Lisa. Could you get into your relationship with deep listening and how the utilization of that philosophy has contributed to your artistic practice?
Oh, yes. Oh, Lou and I were talking about this on the way to this room. I am a deep listener. It has changed just the awareness. Like, awareness can really just expand. It does expand your world. And being a deep listener, one, it's in my practice. I was like, about touring? No, in my practice. Being a deep listener has changed my practice, and it has changed my audience. Which has also affected my touring. Because there are deep listeners all over the world, and they want to be together. What I've noticed about communities and identities is that people want to be together. People want to be together. My music or my sound making and music process, my art process, leaves a lot more space since I have been aware and studying deep listening and practicing deep listening, because I'm listening. So I'm performing listening. And that is really nice, and it feels really good when more than one people do that, because then we get to listen together. There's more things to hear. Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. Next, for Lou, how was the process of integrating your classical background into your own original compositional styles been? What kinds of personal barriers did you face?
I guess it's been good in helping just tune my ear and and in setting the framework or the foundation of honing in on my craft. But also the ear reaches beyond just classical music. I feel really blessed in that I grew up with a really musical house. So there was music playing from all places, a lot. But I feel like classical has taught me kind of, and how I apply it into my own practice, is as both having some structure around technique, but also the parts of it that I don't like and that I've had to practice letting go of is striving for perfectionism, and being really hard on myself. And I've noticed that those are the sort of things that I rub up against in a negative way. But also because of that, through the letting go, it's caused me to appreciate the other side, the mistakes that are actually not mistakes, and to detune my ear and listen to the notes between. So yeah, it's actually it's helped me to rebel.
Yes.
Thank you. We have another one for anyone who wants to answer. There's no roadmap for playing music outside of an orchestral setting. What advice do you have for people who want to tour or play in a variety of genres?
I think I love this question because I feel like all of us have crafted our careers this way, I guess curated, whether intentionally or not. And for me, so much of it was not intentional, but it came out of a place of need, like I needed this work. But I also knew that there were certain things that I did not want to do. So it was more like I knew more about what I did not want to do, but I also knew that I wanted to travel. So I knew I wanted to play, and I knew I wanted to travel. And so when the opportunity came along to do something different, it meant leaving grad school, but it also meant traveling the globe. And it was my first chamber music touring experience. I worked on a ship in a trio, but this was before what most people know of as far as like string playing on ships. Like we were very much, we negotiated for everything. All of our sets, we cycled through the Beethoven trios, Dachniani. We really approached it very seriously, and so it became like an extension of school for me. I came off the ship knowing my sound, just a totally different player, but I also got to see the world. And so I think the crucial thing is if the experience comes up and you can check off all of the practical things that you can to know that this is a safe thing, if it's different, please do it. If it involves traveling, please do it. You get to a place where you travel so much that going to like a small town America on a tour is like going to Europe to me because it's so strange and it's surreal, and I appreciate the surreal, and I can approach it like it's something new. So I just think intentionally staying open in a smart way is the way to continue doing that, because the first time you do it, it's just like building your resume. People that are on the road in that culture know that you're willing to travel and know that you're someone who's also in that culture. Yeah.
Can I tag real quick on it? I know one thing for me was go to the place where those things are happening as well. And I was living in Houston. I loved things about Houston, but what was difficult was that there was only for the kind of work I wanted to do, like in sessions and working with like mainstream, doing theater, it's limited. But it was scary to be like, so do I leave or do I stay and just try to make something here? But it was already happening, and you can kind of feel like when it's the time, be like, all right, the work is here, it's over here, it's over here. I want to go towards that, like move towards things. And I mean, I would say the other thing is being aware of when it's time to leave school and education, and it's just the idea of like, I know this happens a lot in classical music, but it's sort of like, well, I didn't get into an orchestra yet, or I didn't get into this thing yet, and I want to, maybe I'll do one more level, I'll do one more round, and I just try to encourage people to be like, when it's time to be done, it's time. Go towards it. Go towards what you want to do, and like don't get caught, because it's sort of a culture that developed over a long time, and it's time. We should break that. We got to break that. It doesn't work. It's not real. Like, don't fall for that.
It's a lie. Yeah.
How does one battle mental health going on a tour, not wanting to go versus needing money, and so you need to be on that tour to get that
There's
bread?
another panel right here. Who wants to take it? Lou?
Well, I know. Well,
Got
just for me, and I kind of talked about in the beginning. About wanting and needing. You gotta have faith that the money will come. And you really have to. You gotta have faith and trust that the money will come. If you're putting yourself in a position that is really that's where you're like, this is not going to be healthy for me, and you know it, like you have to really listen deep inside to your intuition and go with what you know is the right thing to do, because otherwise, who knows if you say yes to this because it's financially, but it will actually hurt you mentally, physically, spiritual, whatever, that it could be taking away from something that you would be leaving room for, an opportunity to come in that is actually better for you. But at the same time, we all need money to survive. But learning to say no is a really difficult practice, especially when you know you need it to survive. But I guess, like, I don't want to tell anybody what to do when it comes to money, but I would just say that you really have to meditate and listen to your intuition, because it won't steer you wrong, and really just have faith and trust that something will be there to pick you up in the end. But
Very nice. Thank you. This one, I'll just say choose one thing. It's going to be really hard, but what are
Set us
your
up like this, Jalen? Come on.
what are your go-to sites, food, or activities when you're visiting a new city? So I would say just pick one of your favorite places and why.
I want to. I'm just going to say quickly, when I'm visiting a new city, Joy mentioned this in the recording too, because we talk about this. I've noticed that throughout the world, Ethiopian culture
Yes.
has traveled the world.
It's everywhere.
It is everywhere, and if you can find it, if I find it, I know I'm gonna get the things that I need.
I was going to say the same
Yeah.
thing. Find the brown food, and you'll find stores, you'll find community, find seasoning. You'll find, a lot of times, I've found teas and herbs that I could not find at a Whole Foods or the grocery store. I just find the brown food, and it'll take you there. I've had some of the best food in Genoa, in Copenhagen, and Amsterdam. That's where you go. And I will say, most of the time, it's also easier on the pockets, which is important if you have a poor or missing per diem. What about you, Drew?
I like to find, this is chaotic after your story. I like to find places where I can go check out the landscape. But also, I like to go on the hikes. I like to see what is this place? What is actually here? And yeah, usually finding what's the main activity that people like to do in the town. And in one spot, like Canada, it was a spa. And we went on a boat spa, and it's like, all right, let's spend a ton of money because you're making money on tour. So it's like, all right, let's just do it. And I got to tell you, it was incredible. Changed my life. It was on a boat in the middle of January in Montreal, and I was like, whew. I can't recommend it enough. Yes.
Oh, yeah. I always try to find a botanical garden, or some something like that.
We love a good botanical garden. This next one, you all touched on it a little bit, but weathering in Black women and the John Henry syndrome in men are real. How important is it to have affinity groups for support and collective education?
Sorry, I missed the beginning. Could you read it again?
Weathering in Black women and the John Henry syndrome in men is real. How important is it to have affinity groups for support and collective education?
Okay, I'm not sure I know what weathering is, but I guess it's like saying whether this, like weathering, whether this, or like weathering the storm.
Like traversing.
True. Yeah. What's the spelling?
No, the last one.
WEA. Weathering. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Cool. I was like, Wuthering Heights. It's always great to have a support system. I guess that's really the question. Like whatever shakiness you feel in yourself, whether it's weathering, or John Henry, who's a mountain man or something, right? Is there a song? I'm not familiar, but the syndrome, I'm familiar with syndrome. So whatever syndrome you're dealing with, it's always great to have a support system. If you can find one person, and most of the time if you feel like you don't have one person, there are always lines available everywhere. Well, maybe, probably. You could look where somebody can talk to you even anonymously to check in. Yeah.
Very good. We would like to we have time for one more question, and we'd love to open up the floor if anyone has any questions in the room.
I have a question. Hello. Hi. As somebody who is sort of beginning their touring career on a very regional level, I've played some shows and venues where the audience is other bands who are on the bill, and that's about it. Do you have any advice for somebody who's just starting out and wants to connect more with people who believe that, or people who they think would like their music but are unsure of how to sort of reach those points or those people, as somebody who's doing DIY tours?
I can say something real quick. For DIY tours, I would suggest, again, network, like friends of friends. Even if your network is small, like the people that you know, if it's 3 people that love you, ask them if they know who are the people that you know in the country, and so it's kind of a safety net too. And even that idea of like going to do house concerts, even if it's not a house concert, you're housed in that place, you have a point of reference. That's a safe kind of green book way to weather. I'm stuck on this. I'm not gonna stop. To weather through to do that. And also I would say, like, if there's an artist, a particularly niche artist or popular artist that you really like and you really admire, you like what they're doing, you look at their tours. And you can often sometimes look online and find their earlier tours and just follow a route. We do not have to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, I was going to say that as well. Also, if you plan ahead, if you know like the places that you're going to go to, you could even do something as like making a flyer and reaching out to like the local cafes or the bookshops or places where you think people would be open to just like putting your flyer up, so people that are locally in the neighborhood, they like see it and have an opportunity to see it outside of social media or these spaces that can be so siloed.
I was gonna tell you real quick.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, as someone who's observed her career, like, as it's gone, I think sitting here today, one of the things that I respect the most, and I've said this to you, is the fan base, because they're so real and they're so grounded, and they're, like, just even from the outside looking in, they feel like family and they treat her like family. And so I think the cool thing about where we are in 2025 is that doing something analog, like putting a poster up in a bookshop or a library, is going to filter out mess like your demo. It's even just thinking about your future fan base and the people that are going to encourage you when nothing else is working. Like, I think it really matters, and I think that's a great way to like very quickly be like, oh, these are the people that I do want around me or following me or supporting me.
And I was just gonna say that piggybacks on something too that I wanted to talk about. But yeah, for sure, I think consistency as well, and just like you're trying to get this fan base, you're trying to build it and connect. I would just say, just continue, just putting your stuff out there that you really believe in. Even if it gets like 10 views, you're like, oh, this audience isn't very big. Just whatever it is, just be consistent about what you do, because that happens a lot more often than you think, where someone like latches on and they're like, wow, I really, really love this. And then you have a whole history of like practice and experience and like just portfolios, everything, it's all there already. And it really, really makes a difference. Like, just allow yourself to keep just developing and being, consistent about that. Yeah.
I think that's all we have time for, yeah? So thank you for coming. Again, please feel free to download the Sphinx app for all the information about the rest of this weekend, about the finalists who are going to be performing tonight. And thank you again to my lovely panelists. Thank you guys for coming out. Have a great weekend.